What's going on, friends? My name is Marcel Flores. Welcome to my YouTube channel, One Dapper Street. Today we're going to talk about Hypebeast sneakers. I'm going to show you guys what is in my collection, including the shoes that I'm wearing right now. We're going to talk about why hype sneakers are so hype right now, where they came from, a little bit of the fashion cycle. I'll talk about the ones that I like, why I like them, and 3 distinct categories that we are seeing in the industry right now. Let's start off with the top ones on the ladder. I think you should all recognize what these are. If you don't, then you'll know after this video. These orange tags, especially this one on the side, is super distinctive for Off-White. Off-White is designed by Virgil Abloh, and I think what made Off-White as big as it is was a lot of the collaboration projects that they did, a lot of the Nike collabs that went absolutely crazy. I think Virgil is an insane footwear designer. I love the shoes and a great designer altogether. But the collaborations, they took off. Some of them I didn't really understand. Like, I personally never really got into the Vapor Maxes, but people went crazy, and I think his approach to the design is so different and so unique that it's like so out of the ordinary, but also not. It just works. I know it's a little bit difficult to understand if you're not in the fashion industry and don't really get exposed to it many times. That kind of goes for all of the sneakers I'm wearing. The more you get exposed to it, the quicker you get adapted to it and start appreciating that angle of design. It definitely goes back to a little bit of a status thing. So if you're paying $500-600 for a pair of sneakers, it is definitely a prestige purchase. Quality is something that should be assured in that price range altogether, but if you're just looking at buying a pair of sneakers for the sake of having shoes on your feet, you're not going to go for a designer thing. You're going for the distinct design. It's, to me, a form of art, and that's one of the reasons that justify the higher price tag, but you gotta be passionate about it. You gotta absolutely love what you have. So for me, these remind me of the Air Force Ones back in the day, the high tops, but a little bit more sleek, a little bit more refined, and I love the colorway. I have 2 pairs of these actually. This was a gift from a friend of mine for Christmas. Love you, Joey. But I personally also just like the aesthetic of the orange tags. It brings a pop down. People will literally walk down the street and look at your shoes because it's bright orange. Whether that's a positive reaction to the shoes or not is definitely like beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. But that's the first pair of sneakers I wanted to introduce you to today, and they fall into the category of, I want to say, collaboration sneakers, even though this silhouette particularly is not a collab. Actually, before we move on, I want to talk about styling these a little bit. I personally almost disregarded the fact that there's orange tags on this. So I'm treating this just like a regular cream high top sneaker. I wear it with ripped jeans, and I don't know, I kind of let the tags do their own work, but that's just a quick note on the styling. I think the styling is going to be a little bit more interesting for the other 2 pairs, so let's move on. Next up, let's talk about, I think, the most polarizing category of hype sneakers that we have out there right now, which are chunky, ugly, dad sneakers. There's a few terms, but they all really refer to the same thing. Let's start with dad sneakers, because that implies a little bit of a cycle in the fashion industry. We saw a lot of silhouettes that are similar to this back in the 90s. Fashion tends to repeat itself in about 30-year cycles, so it's not surprising that now, approximately 30 years later, we're seeing a little bit of a comeback. What happens in fashion, though, is that what was once a trend will come back with a little bit of a adjustment, a little bit of a tweak, and maybe leaning into the extreme a little bit more. And that's exactly what we're seeing with these, where you have super chunky soles and, in some cases, ugly sneakers entirely on purpose. For me, it took the longest time to get used to them. You might be watching this and be like, I'm still not used to them, so maybe not the longest time, but for me personally, usually I adapt to trends a little bit faster. It took me a while to get used to them. The first pair I had was these pair of Y-3 sneakers. You can see they're a little bit chunky, but I love the white and black combination, and it's chunky just in parts. The second pair that I actually really fell in love with are these Stella McCartney Eclipse sneakers, and you can see, because the silhouette is already something pretty special, I stuck with achromatic colors. So we have gray, black, and white here, and just black and white there, and I think that's an easier way to lean into it. A pair that you also saw on the channel, which ironically got significantly more hate, while these actually got a lot of love, was the pair of Versace sneakers that I was wearing during Fashion Week and at the fashion show about a month ago here in New York. I personally even like those. Once again, they're all white, so that made it a little bit easier for me, but you can see that within the category there's a little bit of a range of something that's closer to normal and closer to everyday approachable versus, you know, super design and super, for a lot of us, you guys and myself included, over the top. Who really brought that silhouette out and made it like a big fashion thing was Balenciaga, with the Triple S sneakers that literally flew off the shelves. People couldn't get them, and I by now like looking at them. I still can't wear them myself. This is about where I cap out. So that's category 2, chunky, ugly, fugly dad sneakers. And while I mentioned Balenciaga, let's talk about, I think, one of the most iconic to me they're iconic. But one of the most iconic shoes, you know, Cardi B rapped about them, the ones that look like socks, and I'm wearing them right now. I think it goes back, for me personally, to my soccer days, when I had my soccer shoes on and I would pull my, I don't even know what they're called, like the long socks where you put the protectors underneath. That kind of looked like if you wore a black shoe and the black socks, it looked like it was one long thing, and I always liked that aesthetic. So when the Balenciaga sock sneakers came out, I liked them from the get-go. That was one of the only today hype shoes that I was like, I could see myself wearing them. These are the first hype sneakers that I owned in my life. I went to Bergdorf Goodman and I picked them up because I really just fell in love with them. One, they're super comfortable. Two, they make for that really nice slim silhouette, especially paired with a pair of, in this case, black ripped jeans that are super skinny. I think one thing that's really important for me is that it hits really nice and slim and continues the silhouette of the shoe. Now we see a lot of other brands, may they be designers or mass market, whatever. A lot of brands are producing shoes like this. I think I've seen a lot of them on people walking down the street, and it's one of the more accepted silhouettes out of the hype sneakers that we're talking about today. And one of my favorites is actually from Christian Dior. I considered getting another pair, but honestly, they end up looking so similar, a lot of them, that I can't justify buying another pair, and I still love these, and I actually need to get them a little bit of a clean, so hopefully I get around to do that very soon. So that's my take on Hypebeast sneakers. I think it's important that we embrace things that are changing even when they're outside of our comfort zone a little bit. Like I said, you don't have to embrace the trend entirely, but if you get something that's a little bit more muted, that works more with your style, it's definitely something that one can learn to lean into and eventually adapt into your own style. Big disclaimer once again, quality should be ensured with all of these shoes, but if fashion, true fashion, is not something you're super into, then you can definitely go with much more simple sneakers, a simple pair of white sneakers. On Kari Floors we have a pair of white sneakers that retails for $165, but is actually handmade in Italy with awesome leather and super comfortable. So there's other options out there, but today I wanted to spend a little time talking about this. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Leave your comments and thoughts down below. I'm sure we're gonna get a few of those with this video. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, make sure to change that subscribe button, and then, you know, the bell also. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you soon with the next one. Until then, stay hype. Just kidding. Stay dapper. Actually, before we move on,